Hi, welcome to this video about stress. With this video I'm really looking to actually bust the myth of stress and, well, not the myth that stress exists. I mean, stress is actually an incredibly normal response to the belief that your well-being or your whether you're okay or not is attached to your ability to be able to cope with a workload, or to cope with a number of scenarios, or to cope with the idea of what somebody thinks of you or anything like that. So stress is an incredibly normal thing that every human experiences at some point. And what we've been kind of taught in our society is that stress is a problem that we need to solve through, almost kind of through medicating stress, whether that's through medicating it with exercise, or whether that's medicating it with changing the situation, or whether it's with looking at our diet and meditating or something along those lines. So we often look at stress that there's something else that we need to do to fix this problem. But the problem with looking at it in that way, and so that's the bit that I'm looking to bust actually, is the remedy of stress. So the problem with looking at it in that way is that what we're doing is we're kind of coming from the same place. We've still got this idea that we're not able to cope, and whether or not we're going to be okay if we aren't able to cope, and then we're giving ourselves more things to do in order to be okay. So what we're basically doing is we're saying, hey, I've got more than I can cope with here, and I don't feel okay about this. I feel really unpleasant. So in order to now deal with this unpleasantness, I now have more things on my to-do list. Now those might be nice things, like I absolutely love yoga. I do yoga most days. But if that's become a kind of prescriptive, this is something that I need to do and I won't be okay if I don't do it, then actually we can feel just as stressed while we're doing yoga as we can while we're trying to meet a deadline. So that's not the answer, because we're just going to make ourselves more insecure if we tackle life in that way. When people come to me with stress, what we look at is the belief that they have attached there, because there'll be some kind of idea that they aren't okay because of whatever it may be. So that's the bit that we challenge. We look at changing that fundamental understanding of where does wellness, okayness, our well-being actually come from. Is it from the outside world and having all our circumstances of life lined up absolutely perfectly, or actually is it something that comes from within? The good news is it's something that comes from within, because if it was about having all of our external life circumstances lined up perfectly in order for us to feel okay, well, that's a house of cards. We might be able to make some changes and then set ourselves up to have these nice conditions which maybe are conducive with feeling more relaxed. It's only ever going to be temporary, because there's always the possibility that something that we've lined up could change. We aren't in control of everything in our lives, in our environments. So to place our well-being on that it's a bottomless pit of always having to look after ourselves, always having to worry about whether we're able to maintain something or not. And that's, that approach to life perpetuates the feeling of stress. The work that I do is very much about, let's just completely change our whole understanding of what stress is. Let's understand it, let's see it for what it is. All it is it's a belief, it's an idea that whether we're okay or not is attached to this particular thing. A lot of people have had experiences, and maybe you've had one yourself, where actually something terrible did happen, something that if you'd imagined in advance of it happening, you would have thought about how awful that would be and how terrible you would feel in that situation, maybe even how stressed you would feel. But when it actually happened, you found a feeling of peace that you didn't realise it would be possible for you to feel in that situation. But it was just so like, oh, well, I'm okay, and I'm just going to dust myself off and carry on. When we're in that situation, we can feel that, we can know it. When we're out of it and we're staring down the idea of this could go wrong and that wouldn't be okay if it did go wrong, that looks really believable. That's what this is all about. That's the myth that I want to bust, the idea that there are a particular set of circumstances which are required for you to be okay. There are.